Right, so let's get started here in Google Drive by going over to the New button and choosing Google Vids. Now, just before I do that, I just want to point out that Vids are a file in your Google Drive, just like any other file. So, just you can see here, there's a Vids file here, just in amongst the Google Slides and the Google Docs and everything else. It's just another kind of file inside Workspace. In fact, if you go to the search button up here, you can actually search as a type. You can search for Vids. So if you want to get all the vids in your Google Drive, there's a button to do that right there. Okay, so understanding that, let's just create a new one by going to the New button here and choosing Google Vids, and you see it opens up this new panel here. Now, this splash screen, this welcome screen that we get, shows you some various starting points that you could use to get started with making your first video. And there's some in here that are AI enabled. So Gemini powers some of these. And you can see as you hover over some of them, they get this little blue button with the Gemini logo. These are Gemini AI features. And you can use Gemini to help you get started with your video by doing various things. We'll cover these a little bit more later in this video, but just be aware that some of these are AI powered. And if you don't see them, it's probably because that you don't have the Gemini license enabled for your particular Google account. So that might be the reason. However, other things like recording your screen, working with the templates, uploading your own media, all of that stuff is in there, and you should be able to do that regardless of whether you have the AI license or not. Just want to point out the templates because the templates are really interesting. There's a whole bunch of beautiful templates in here. There's quite a few. So whether you want to do like a, I don't know, a teacher-student report or you've got a documentary template here or a project presentation. So if you need something to get started, there are a bunch of templates in here to help you do that. Just be aware that they exist. We are going to start a blank vid, however, by clicking on the blank vid icon and go in from scratch and see how this looks. Now, just to learn our way around the screen here, so it starts with this white area, which is obviously where you start to assemble your video. This is referred to as a scene, and this block down the bottom here is this scene. Now, you can add multiple scenes to your video by clicking the blue button. So if I click once, I get a second scene. If I click three times, I get a third scene, and so on. And each one of these that I click on, how it has the blue outline, that's the scene that I'll be working on. So when I'm in this particular, the second scene here, up here represents what's in here. If I go back to the first one and I'm working in here, whatever I change here will affect what's on this scene. So just be aware each of these scenes affects what's happening up here in the top space. You can remove a scene by simply selecting it and pressing the backspace or delete key, and it goes away. And let's get rid of that one as well. So we're back to having one scene. A couple of things about scenes that is worth knowing. They are by default 5 seconds long. So you can see that little 5.0 there. That means this scene is 5 seconds by default. Now, you can stretch that out to be longer by grabbing the blue handle or make it shorter if you like. So you can change the length of a scene. You're not limited to 5 seconds, but by default, they are all 5 seconds long to start with. The other thing that is the default is that this space up here we're working in is a space commonly referred to as 16 by 9 because it's 16 units across and 9 units down. That's the ratio of a television screen or a mobile phone screen, and is obviously a really typical format for you to work on when you're making videos. However, Vids just recently introduced this button here where you can go in and you can change from being widescreen 16 by 9 to vertical 16 by 9 because a lot of people are now producing videos for that vertical format like YouTube Shorts or Instagram Reels. So if you want to do that sort of thing, you've got the facility to do that now. So it's just that button right there. You can even do square videos if that's your thing. So let's just go back to a regular 16 by 9 widescreen. And that's how we'll work. Now, we're going to come back and make a video shortly, but just before we do, I just want to draw your attention to these buttons down the side. These buttons let you do all sorts of things, and a lot of them correspond to the things we saw on that initial introduction screen. So, the VAO making your AI clips or adding an introductory AI avatar. So those things are all here as well as being on that welcome screen. So you don't have to worry once that welcome screen goes, you've still got access to all of that stuff. And then finally, just along the top here, you'll notice that you have the menus, which are just like other Google Docs, except they have video-specific features like downloading as an MP4. There's a specific menu in here for scenes, for example, which is obviously specific to vids. But by and large, if you're familiar with Google Docs or Google Slides, you'd be very comfortable here, right here in Vids, because a lot of it looks really similar and a lot of it works very similar as well. A lot of the making objects on the page in Vids is exactly the same as making objects on the page in Slides. So there's a pretty shallow learning curve if you already know one of those other tools. All right, so that wraps up our little introduction to the interface here. Let's move on to the next video where we can start to assemble our first video.